A very good evening to one and all. I welcome you all to this news analysis initiative. These are the articles that are important from today's newspaper. Without any further delay, we will move on to the first one. The first article is The Stark Reality of Educational Costs in India. Article 21A of the Constitution guarantees free and compulsory education for children aged 6 to 14 years, and National Education Policy 2020 extends this vision from ages 3 to 18. However, recent NSS 80th round on comprehensive modular survey education shows that schooling in India has become increasingly costly for households, undermining the idea of education as a right. Now, why schooling is becoming expensive? Rising shift towards private schools. Only 55.9% students study in government schools. In urban areas, over 51% students are in private schools. Private school enrollment has increased across rural and urban since 2018. High fees in private schools. Private school annual fees range from 18,000 to 33,000 in rural and 26,000 to 49,000 in urban. Monthly private school expenditure often equals the entire monthly income of the poorest households. Hidden cost even in government schools. 25 to 35% of government school students still pay fees through expenses on uniforms, books, transports add to the burden. Explosion of private tuition culture. 25.5% rural and 30.7% urban students takes private coaching. Coaching costs rise sharply at higher levels up to 22,000 annually in urban higher secondary. Poor school quality pushes families towards tuition. Inequality in access and outcomes. Private schooling and coaching favor urban, richer and educated families. Education increasingly becomes a market good, not a social right. So, what are the consequences of this? It violates the equity principle of Article 21A. Financial stress on households, especially lower income groups. It also widens the learning inequality between rich and poorer students. And there is a declining trust and enrollment in government schools. So, what is the way forward? We have to strengthen government schools, improve teacher quality, infrastructure, and learning outcomes. Evidence shows better schools reduce dependence on private tuition. Regulate private school fees and coaching centers. Enforce transparent fee structures and prevent profiteering. Improve learning quality, not just access. Focus on foundational literacy, numeracy, and classroom teaching. Targeted public spending. Increase education expenditure as a share of GDP. Support disadvantaged students through scholarships and learning support. And implement National Education Policy 2020 effectively. Reduce exam pressure, coaching dependence, and rote learning. Ensuring quality, accessible, and publicly funded education is essential to restore education as a right rather than a privilege and to achieve inclusive and equitable development. The next article is The Madras High Court must break its silence. What is the issue? Judges of a High Court are appointed through the collegium system, where the Chief Justice of the High Court plus two senior most judges recommend names. The state government can seek clarification but cannot overrule the collegium if it reiterates. So, what went wrong in the Madras High Court? In November 2025, the Madras High Court Collegium recommended names for new judges. However, Justice Nisha Banu, who is the second senior most judge and legally part of the collegium, was not included. Instead, a junior judge was included. The state government asked a simple question. On what legal basis was the senior judge excluded and the junior judge included? Now, why is this serious? Justice Nisha Banu was transferred by the centre, but she never joined the Kerala High Court. So, legally, she still remains a Madras High Court judge and should be part of the collegium. The collegium did not explain why she was excluded and proceeded with more recommendations. Now, why does this procedure matter? In constitutional matters, procedure is equal to legitimacy. If the collegium itself is not properly constituted, its decisions can become constitutionally invalid. Judicial appointments demand absolute transparency because judicial independence rests on trust. And there is also a larger concern. The collegium system is already criticized for lack of transparency, no return reasons, possible bias, or favoritism. This incident deepens doubts about accountability in judicial appointments. This incident highlights the urgent need for transparent and rule-based reforms in judicial appointments. The next article for the day is Playing to the Gallery. The Karnataka government has proposed a new law, Karnataka Hate Speech and Hate Crimes Prevention Bill 2025, to prevent hate speech and hate crimes. The intention sounds good: to stop hatred, violence, and discrimination based on religion, caste, gender, race, or sexual orientation. But the main concern is that this law gives too much power to the state to decide what counts as hate, disharmony, or ill will. These words are vague and subjective. What one person sees as criticism, another may call hate speech. When the government gets the power to decide what speech is acceptable, it becomes dangerous for free speech and personal liberty. The bill defines hate speech very broadly, covering spoken words, writing, visuals, and online posts. Because of this wide definition, even genuine criticisms or dissent can be punished depending on who is in power. In a free society, speech should be restricted only when it directly leads to violence. India already has laws to deal with violence, incitement, and public disorder. The next article is the falling rupee a cause for alarm? We have already seen this article multiple times. I have also given a separate video. I am attaching a card to this. You can watch it over there. The next term is Climate Focused Resilience Sustainability Facility. It is very important for prelims. This Resilience Sustainability Facility is a funding support given by the IMF to poor and vulnerable middle-income countries. It provides long-term, low-cost loans to help these countries carry out important reforms so that their economy remains stable in the future. The key focus are tackling climate change risks, improving pandemic preparedness, and preventing future balance of payments crisis. The next term is M23 Armed Group. M23 or March 23 movement is an armed rebel group operating in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. It is mainly active in North Kivu province near the borders of Rwanda and Uganda, a region rich in minerals. M23 gets its name from March 23, 2009 when an agreement was signed between the Congolese government and a rebel group promising political representation and integration into the army. M23 claims the government failed to honor this agreement. The next article for the day is, what does Supreme Court's ruling on narco test mean? The Supreme Court in Amlesh Kumar vs. State of Bihar in 2025 held that forced or involuntary narco tests are unconstitutional, reiterating its earlier judgment in Selvi vs. State of Karnataka. So what is a narco test? A narco test involves administering drugs like sodium pentothal to reduce a person's ability to think clearly with the aim of extracting concealed information during investigation. Why did the Supreme Court strike it down? Because it is violation of Article 20, Clause 3. Compulsory narco tests amount to self-incrimination. That is, no person shall be compelled to be a witness against himself, which is constitutionally prohibited. And Article 20 forms the constitutional foundation of India's criminal justice system. Article 20, Clause 1, no ex post facto punishment. 20, Clause 2, protection against double jeopardy. 20, Clause 3, protection against self-incrimination. It is violation of Article 21. A democratic criminal justice system should balance the rights of the victim with those of the accused. Conducting such tests without consent infringes the right to life, dignity, and privacy, which is one of the most important basic human right. The next is the Golden Triangle Principle. The Constitution protects our basic freedoms through three linked rights: equality, Article 14, freedom, Article 19, and life and personal liberty, Article 21. Together, they are called the Golden Triangle. So, if a person's right to privacy is violated, it is not a small issue. It directly affects their right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. And because these rights are interconnected, it also upsets the balance of the entire Golden Triangle. Courts have held that narco test results do not prove guilt and must be corroborated independently. And the last is consent is mandatory. Even voluntary narco tests require informed consent recorded before a magistrate and undertaken with medical, legal, and procedural safeguards. This informed consent means that a person has the freedom to decide what happens to their own body and mind. This freedom is part of individual autonomy and natural justice. The next article for the day is Why Human Rating Matters as India Prepares for Gaganyaan. India is preparing to send humans to space under the Gaganyaan mission. For this, ISRO is doing something very important called human rating. Human rating means certifying a rocket and spacecraft to safely carry humans, not just satellites. Even though rockets like LVM-3 already launch satellites successfully, carrying humans needs much higher safety standards and very low risk. According to global standards like NASA's, a human-rated system should have less than 0.2% chance of losing the crew during launch or return. To achieve this, engineers add multiple backup systems, like 3 to 4 computers doing the same job, a crew escape system to pull astronauts away if something goes wrong, ability to tolerate single failures without disaster, and reliable life support systems inside the crew module. All systems are tested and documented far more strictly than cargo rockets. Human rating is difficult because space flight is extremely harsh. A rocket must reach 28,000 km per hour in just 8 to 10 minutes. They face intense vibration, heat, and pressure. This is very different from airplanes which fly slowly, can glide, and land safely even if an engine fails. That's why rockets usually have 98 to 99.5% success, while airplanes are far safer. Only a few rockets in the world are human rated today. It is very important for prelims. Russia's Soyuz, China's Long March 2F, SpaceX Falcon 9. These rockets have strong safety records, especially the Soyuz. And human rating is expensive and complex, which is why most rockets are not human rated. For Gaganyaan, ISRO is human rating the LVM-3 rocket. Once certified, it will be called HLVM-3. LVM-3 was chosen because it has successful flights, uses fully indigenous engines, and supports India's goal of self-reliance, which is Atmanirbhar Bharat. The next term in news is Interpol Blue Corner Notice. Interpol serves as a vital information sharing network for national police forces to combat transnational crimes. Interpol issues notices to member states for missing or wanted persons, which, while not mandatory for states to follow, are often treated as warrants for arrest and extradition. Notices are issued at the request of a member country's Interpol National Central Bureau. Now, what is this Blue Corner Notice? It is referred to as an enquiry notice. It enables police forces in member countries to exchange crucial crime-related information, including verifying a person's criminal record and location. There are other notices like red notice for wanted persons, yellow notice for missing persons, black notice for unidentified bodies, green notice for warnings and intelligence, orange notice for imminent threat, purple notice for modus operandi, and Interpol UN Security Council special notice for groups and individuals subject to United Nations Security Council sanction. The next article for the day. Three-judge bench to hear plea on online gaming law. The Supreme Court is examining whether Parliament had the legal authority to pass the new online gaming law, which bans real money online games, related banking services, and advertisements. The key question is this: is online gaming the same as betting and gambling? Why does this matter? Because under the Constitution, betting and gambling come under the state list. This means only state governments, not Parliament, have the power to make laws on it. So, important for prelims, betting and gambling come under the state list. The next article for the day is DPIIT signals Copyright Act changes. The Indian government has indicated that it will change the Copyright Act 1957 to deal with challenges posed by artificial intelligence, especially tools like ChatGPT. What is the problem? AI models are trained by scraping large amounts of content from the internet, news, articles, blogs, books, etc. On one hand, publishers argue our content is being used, we should be paid. On the other, AI companies argue public content should be freely usable for innovation. What does the government propose? The DPIIT has suggested a blanket licensing model. AI companies can freely scrape publicly available online content. But once the AI models are commercialized, they must pay royalties. These royalties will be collected by a new body called Copyright Royalties, Collective for AI Training. The money will be distributed to content creators through a copyright society, which is similar to music royalty systems. Now, why is this approach? This will avoid constant court cases over copyright. It balances AI innovation with creator compensation. It gives legal clarity instead of waiting for court verdicts. However, there are objections from NASSCOM and big tech firms. They say mandatory royalties act like a tax on innovation. Publishers should have the option to opt out of AI data scraping. The proposal unfairly shifts the burden of proof to AI firms to show they did not use copyrighted material. But it is very difficult because AI outputs are probabilistic. Now, what does scraping means? It means automatically collecting data from websites using computer programs. In the AI context, AI companies use software like crawlers or bots to scan web pages. They copy text, articles, blogs, images, etc. This data is then used to train AI models like ChatGPT. The next article for the day is Aadhaar app to enable offline sharing by exposing minimal data. The UIDAI is testing a new Aadhaar mobile app that allows people to share only minimum required information instead of giving full Aadhaar details everywhere. The app uses a secure QR code that contains Aadhaar details. This QR code works fully offline. No internet needed. It is digitally signed by UIDAI, so it is almost impossible to fake. Now, how will it work in places like hotels? Instead of giving a photocopy or PDF of Aadhaar, users can show the QR code. Hotels or other entities can scan it using the Aadhaar app. They will see only limited information, not full Aadhaar data. Now, what are OVSEs? They are offline verification seeking entities. These are places like hotels that verify Aadhaar without storing physical copies. This reduces misuse, data leaks, and forged Aadhaar documents. Now, why is this important for UPSC? Because it improves privacy protection by sharing minimum data, reduces identity theft and fake Aadhaar usage, makes Aadhaar the only ID verifiable offline in a secure way. The next article for the day is Fuel Rules Tweak to Ease Business. The government has amended the Petroleum and Natural Gas Rules 2025 to make oil and gas exploration easier and more investor friendly. What has changed? Number 1, longer lease period. Earlier, petroleum leases were given for 20 years. Now, leases can be granted for up to 30 years and even extended for the entire life of the oil or gas field. Number 2, single lease for all operations. Earlier, companies needed multiple permissions for different oil and gas activities. Now, one single petroleum lease will allow all types of mineral oil operations. Why is this important? It gives investors long term certainty, encouraging bigger investments. It reduces red tape and delays. It improves ease of doing business in the energy sector, and it will help boost domestic oil and gas production and ensure energy security. The next article is Mexico's tariffs and impact on India. Mexico has imposed high import tariffs 5% to 50% on goods coming from countries with which it does not have a free trade agreement. India is one such country, so Indian exports to Mexico are affected. These tariffs were first imposed in April 2024 for 2 years and have now been extended to continue from January 2026. Now, how serious is this for India? The overall impact is limited because India exports $5.7 billion worth of goods to Mexico. This is only 1.3% of India's total exports, so the macro impact is small. But sector-wise impact is significant. Automobiles and auto parts form 25% of India's exports to Mexico. Motorcycles add another 7%. Mexico takes 10% of India's total auto exports and 12% of motorcycle exports. So these sectors are more vulnerable now. Why is Mexico doing this? To protect its own domestic industry, to discourage imports from non-FTA countries, to push countries like India to negotiate trade agreements. And India's Engineering Exports Promotion Council has urged the government to start FTA talks with Mexico to reduce or remove tariffs. So one thing you have to note here is we don't have an FTA with Mexico. The next article for the day is US launches Trump Gold Card. The Trump Gold Card is a new US visa program. It offers legal permanent residency and a pathway to US citizenship for individuals and corporations willing to invest $1 million or more funds in United States. The next article for the day is US clears $686 million F-16 support deal for Pakistan. This deal is not for new fighter jets. It is only for maintenance and upgrades so that Pakistan can safely operate the F-16s it already has. The US has clearly said that this deal does not change the regional military balance. It has also reassured India by saying India is a major defense partner. US-India partnership is focused on a free and open Indo-Pacific. The next term in news is July Charter. The July Charter 2025 is a political declaration in Bangladesh based on the consensus between 30 political parties and the interim government over the constitutional, electoral and administrative reforms in the aftermath of the July Revolution in 2024. It aims to incorporate several changes to the 1972 Constitution of Bangladesh. The next article for the day is Invisible Epidemic. Air pollution in India is no longer a winter problem or limited to Delhi. It is now a year-round nationwide public health crisis affecting children, adults and the elderly. In 2025, 150 out of 256 monitored cities crossed safe particulate matter 2.5 limits. Delhi recorded PM 2.5 levels of 107 to 130, far above India's limit of 60 and WHO's guideline of 15. Problem with India's air quality index system. India's air quality index stops at 500 even when pollution goes much higher. This hides the real danger and downplays health risks. Experts say India needs updated standards, better monitoring and removal of the air quality index cap. So now what is the health impact? The invisible damage. 46% of Indians live in areas where pollution reduces life expectancy. In Delhi, people lose over 8 years of life due to air pollution. In 2023 alone, nearly 2 million deaths were linked to air pollution. Pollution related deaths have increased by 43% since 2000. Now, what particulate matter 2.5 does to the body? First is the cardiovascular. PM 2.5 enters the blood, causes inflammation, thereby causing heart attacks, strokes, and high BP. Next, lungs. Rising asthma in children, permanent lung damage. Next is the brain. It affects memory, learning, and increases dementia risk. The next is the maternal and neonatal deaths. Leads to preterm births, low birth weight, and infant deaths. There is also an inequality angle. Poor communities live closer to roads, industries, and landfills. They face higher exposure, poor housing, dirty fuels, and weak healthcare access. Air pollution deepens social and health inequality. So, the root causes are not just festivals. Stubble burning and fireworks worsen pollution briefly. The real causes are year round vehicles, industries, construction dust, waste burning, and biomass fuels. So, what India must do? First is the transport. Electrify public transport. Shift freight to rail, low emission zones. Number 2, industry. Enforce pollution control, reduce coal dependence. Number 3, construction. Strict dust control rules. Number 4, waste. End open burning with scientific waste management. Number 5, health system. Link air quality with healthcare and school health checks. So the final takeaway is clean air is not a luxury, it is a fundamental right. Clean air must become a non-negotiable national priority for India's health and future. That's all for today. Thank you all for joining.